you have to be selfish if you're a person that's rich, that's making money, and you don't want to pay your fair share of taxes. Well, when you think about the billionaires in the state, in the city of New York, they make up about 48% in terms of the amount of taxes that they dole out compared to the average American, compared to the rest of New Yorkers. And if you're talking about raising their taxes while doing these other things, you're making New York unattractive, not just for residents, but for business.
Stephen A. Smith unloads on Zohran Mamdani and Democratic leaders, giving a fierce and no-holds-barred takedown that really hurts.
85% of the population lives there. That's where I live. That's why I'm on POTUS. That's where we live. We ain't fearing one way or the other to the extreme because we understand, it is about affordability, but it's also about the economy. It's also about safety in the streets. And when you're talking about the combination of a free bus ride or free grocery stores, and oh, by the way, less police, or at least not more police officers, and not prioritizing law enforcement in the streets of a city, of a state, of the United States of America, you got a problem.
That sports media firestarter didn't hold back at all. He went after weak spots in the DNC's newest plan to take control back from Donald Trump and the Republicans. His critique was strong and straight up. Now hit that subscribe button and dive in with us right away.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me be very, very clear. If the Democratic Party becomes the light of Zohran Mamdani, who, by the way, I like, I'm not trying to throw any shade on him or anything like that, but if the Democratic Party becomes him, you have no chance. You have no chance. On a national basis in terms of the presidency. In Senate seats in the House, you have no chance. You have no chance. I want to be very, very clear about that. You might have a Democratic Socialist sprinkled here and there, but that ain't what America is. America's about capitalism. America's about dollars and cents. America's about an economy, a flourishing economy. Okay? And you know what it's not about? Free stuff.
This isn't about freebies. Right from the start, Stephen A. goes straight for it, criticizing DNC leaders for making Mamdani their shiny new political star. Ever since winning the New York mayor race, Mamdani has been all over the news on TV panels and dominating headlines. Stephen A. thinks this isn't an accident. It looks like a careful setup for a possible 2028 presidential run. But he says this plan could flop badly at the polls. He believes Democrats still don't get what regular Americans want. While some progressives cheer for free stuff and bigger government, everyday voters hear a different message: higher taxes, less accountability, and creeping socialism. Stephen A. warns that voters want opportunities, safety, and realistic leadership, not handouts. Making Mamdani a national star could turn into the DNC's next big mistake.
I like Mamdani. I'm looking forward to interviewing him. He's promised to be on this show. But I'm very, very concerned about some of the things that he said. I'm very concerned about what he once said about defunding the police. I'm calling 911. I'm being real with you. I'm calling 911. That's what I'm doing. I don't want to see less police officers. I want to see more police officers. I heard him talk about mental health experts in the subway system. I don't care about that. I want cops in the subways in New York City, where I was born and raised. Born in the Bronx, raised in Queens. That's what I want. I want to hear about no damn mental health experts in subways. Nah. I'm not trying to hear that.
I like Mamdani. I can't wait to interview him. He promised he'll be on this show. But I'm really worried about some things he said. I'm especially worried about what he said about cutting police funding. I'm calling 911 seriously. I don't want fewer police officers. I want more cops. I heard him talking about mental health workers in the subway. I don't care about that. I want police in the subways where I grew up in New York City. I was born in the Bronx and raised in Queens. That's what I want. No mental health workers instead of cops. Nope, I'm not interested in that.
2% tax on the rich. Okay, fine. 11.5% capital gains tax. On its face, okay, fine. Free buses, free grocery stores in each borough? Really? Really think that's going to work? Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a crossroads in this nation. And there's no way. And the level of vitriol that you see amongst the American citizen is because, God forbid, that you have a difference of opinion. It's not enough to agree. You know, people have to be disagreeable.
Stephen A. then explains why he thinks Mamdani could fail on the national stage, and he doesn't sugarcoat it. His main point is Mamdani's support for cutting police funding. Stephen A. calls that idea electoral poison if Mamdani runs for president. He talks about Mamdani wanting to replace subway cops with mental health workers. Sounds nice on paper, but Stephen A. says it doesn't work in real life. Subways can be dangerous and unpredictable. Taking cops away, he says, makes criminals bolder and puts passengers at risk. For Stephen A., public safety is a top priority for voters. When crime hits home, people stop caring about politics. Policies that reduce policing, he says, don't show kindness, they show chaos, and that's a risk no presidential candidate can survive.
And if you're talking about raising their taxes while doing these other things, you're making New York unattractive, not just for residents, but for businesses. And if you make it unattractive for businesses and you compromise the ability to be the capitalists that these people are, then they take their businesses elsewhere. So the money that they paid on their homes or in rent, they move out of the city or the state. Businesses follow. And ultimately the tax burden falls on to New Yorkers out there.
Next, Stephen A. goes after Mamdani's money plans, focusing on his idea to tax the rich a lot more. Promising big tax hikes has already caused problems. Wealthy people and businesses are leaving for states with lower taxes. Stephen A. says this doesn't punish the rich, it hurts the city by shrinking its tax base. He also criticizes Mamdani's promise to open government-run free grocery stores in boroughs. It's meant to seem kind, but Stephen A. calls it careless and not smart. Free stores can hurt competition, scare off private businesses, and make people rely on the government instead of creating opportunities. He warns that these feel-good policies sound good on paper but can make New York go backward in real life.
Which means that rent freezes, which is also something that Mamdani pushed, is that really going to be plausible? Are you really going to be able to freeze rent? Or are you going to end up hiking it because you don't have enough people here to pay it? Tax revenue, where you getting that from? See, these are all the kind of things that we have to connect the dots and ask ourselves, 1 + 1, does it equal 2? Is it really plausible that these things are going to happen? According to Mayor Hochul, 90% of the stuff Mamdani said he can't do on his own. He got to come through her in the state legislature in order to get it done. Is he going to be able to do that? What level of support is he going to have outside of young whippersnappers out there who love him and are so in love with his personality and everything else that they didn't really dot the I's and cross the T's and look at actual policies and the kind of effect that's going to have on New Yorkers? That's what I'm worried about. I hope I'm wrong.
Lots of people are leaving New York City for a clear reason. They want to keep their money. As taxes go up, rich households and big companies are moving to friendlier states, taking jobs, money, and resources with them. The tax burden doesn't disappear. It hits middle-class and working New Yorkers who can't just leave. Critics say that instead of helping the city, Mamdani's plans make it worse. Money leaves, services shrink, neighborhoods empty out, and the economy slows. Stephen A. says this is how great cities slowly decay. Too many taxes and risky experiments are pushing New York toward long-term decline.
I'm looking forward to sitting down and interviewing with them. I just want to know where the money coming from. See, I count. Okay, I count. And I can't tell you how many young teenagers, it could be daughters, it could be nieces and nephews, it could be friends and family members or relatives of folks along that age gap. And you're asking the same question. And you know what you come up with? People who love Mamdani the most are not people who pay bills every day. I'm not saying that applies to everybody. I'm not implying that. But they certainly not people that pay bills every day all the time. You don't see business owners clamoring to support them. I'm just saying these things are important to bring up because there's going to be a divide that takes place. Remember, Mamdani's ascension and his win in the mayoral election in New York last night is entirely different.
Here's a key point Stephen A. makes. Mamdani's big plans need Governor Kathy Hochul to approve them. Without her okay, his promises can't even start. That puts him in a tough spot. If Hochul blocks or changes his plans, he could look like another politician who promises big but delivers nothing. But if the plans do go through, Stephen A. warns the results could be worse. Radical policies could shake up New York's economy, safety, and taxes almost instantly. Either way, Stephen A. says Mamdani is stuck. Time is running out and his political energy might already be fading.
But the reason I bring that up is because their campaign was a bit different than Zohran Mamdani. They were talking about affordability issues just like he was. But they were also a bit more pragmatic in their thinking. They weren't talking about free grocery stores or free bus rides. They weren't talking about those things. They were talking about centrist kind of policies that would ingratiate themselves with the vast majority of American citizens in their respective states. Because guess what? They recognize that's where the meat of the electorate lives.
Stephen A. doesn't beat around the bush. He warns that if Democrats try to make Mamdani a national presidential figure, the party could split in two. On one side are business owners, workers, and professionals who see his anti-capitalist ideas as a threat to growth, investment, and stability. To them, Mamdani means higher taxes, strict rules, and a government that's tough on businesses. On the other side are voters who like big government promises and free benefits. Stephen A. says this split wouldn't just be in theory, it could hurt the economy and culture. A Mamdani presidential run could divide the party instead of uniting it. Stephen A. then compares Abigail Spanberger and Mamdani to show how different they are. Both care about how expensive life is, rent is high, groceries cost more, and families struggle. But that's where the similarities stop. Spanberger takes a practical approach: lower taxes, cut red tape, and help builders make more housing so prices can drop. Her plan uses the market to fix problems without giving government too much power. Mamdani, on the other hand, goes straight for big government experiments. Instead of fixing things, he wants to replace them with government-run programs, high taxes, and strict control. Stephen A. says Spanberger tries to make capitalism work better, but Mamdani's path could break it.
And when you're talking about the combination of a free bus ride or free grocery stores, and oh, by the way, less police, or at least not more police officers, and not prioritizing law enforcement in the streets of a city, of a state, of the United States of America, you got a problem. You got a problem. And so, well, we got to sit up here and we got to ask ourselves, where are we going from here? Where you going to find yourself? What you going to do? Because you got a shutdown going on.
Stephen A. gives a warning to Mamdani, pointing out what hurt other candidates like Kamala Harris. He says elections aren't won on Twitter or with activists. Most Americans aren't far left or far right. They're regular people worried about bills, safety, and life stability. Donald Trump understood this. He spoke to middle America, focusing on the economy, border security, and cost of living. That's why he won big. Stephen A. says if Mamdani keeps making policies for extreme ideas instead of real problems, his national chances are gone. Without a message that reaches moderates, swing voters, and working families, he won't make it to the White House.
How long you think that's going to last before disorder reigns? You can't do this to American people. You can't do it. Now, I know that we've seen politicians say all of these things, to address some of these things, but I ain't satisfied the fervor with which it's been addressed, because shutdown is still going on. And needless to say, the president chimed in because a lot of people chimed in.
In the end, Stephen A. gives a tough reality check for Mamdani. From radical policies to high taxes, cutting police funding, and free services, Mamdani risks upsetting both the rich who keep the city going and the middle class who support it. Stephen A. warns these unchecked ideas are pushing people out of New York, which could hurt the city socially, economically, and politically. Nationally, his presidential hopes face even bigger challenges. He needs Hochul's approval, must appeal to middle America, and avoid pandering to political extremes. Unlike practical leaders like Spanberger or Trump, Mamdani's ideology-first approach could split the party and isolate voters. Stephen A.'s conclusion is harsh. Without changing course, Mamdani's climb is uncertain. That's today's video. If you liked it, smash that like button and subscribe for more bold takes.